The Guardian is one of the next classes to get their rework in LOTRO, and Orion has made this forum post where he goes through some of the upcoming changes. And in this video, I'm gonna go through the post and look at all the changes that are coming. And the first change to Blue Line is Guardian's Ward is moving up to the 0 tier and takes the place of Defensive Expertise. So Defensive Expertise, which is your 5% block chance in Blue Line, goes away and Guardian's Ward tactics gets moved up to take its place. The second trait line in Blue Line, Adaptability, currently on live. Whenever you're hit by an attack, your block and parry ratings will increase. This effect can stack up to 3 times and will last for 20 seconds until a response skill is used. So this set bonus is changing, as you can see from the note. When you're hit by an attack, you gain a mitigation bonus to the damage source, physical or tactical, that stacks up to 3 times for 20 seconds. Instead of block and parry, you're instead gonna get a mitigation bonus against the source that's hitting you. So if you're getting hit by physical attacks, you're gonna get physical mitigations, and it's basically gonna work just like Adaptability currently does. It doesn't say anything about using a response skill, but I think we can assume that that is staying as well. Hopefully it goes away, because you still want to keep your stacks even if you use a response skill. The third set bonus in Blue Line, Shield Wall, is being replaced by the new skill Protection by the Shield. So the third set bonus is going to be Protected by the Shield. It replaces Shield Wall as a set trait bonus. It will be a toggle skill just like Shield Wall. It can't be disabled by combat states. People might know that if you get stunned, you lose Shield Wall, but Protection by the Shield is going to stay on regardless of the combat states that happen to you. And the effect is the Guardian and all Fellowship and Raid members within 40 meters of the Guardian reduce their incoming damage by 3. So pretty much having a Guardian in your Fellowship or Raid means that everyone in that Fellowship or Raid takes 3% less damage all the time. A pretty strong bonus being added to the Guardian here. Shield Wall is not going away. It's instead just going to be trainable, so Shield Wall will be in your traits where you can put points into it to gain the Shield Wall skill. We have a brand new trait called Shield of Light. It will have 5 tiers. Tiers 1 through 4 adds 0.25% incoming damage reduction to Protection by the Shield per tier, and your Shield Taunt generates 3% more threat per tier. On tier 5, your Shield Taunt will generate 3% more threat and increase targets by 1. So basically putting 5 points into this will add 1% reduced incoming damage to the Protection by the Shield, making Protection by the Shield 4% reduced incoming damage overall. And if you put 5 points into this, Shield Taunt will generate 15% more threat in total, and it will increase its targets by 1, making Shield Taunt a really strong tool for your aggro generation. Warrior's Fortitude is in the notes, but it doesn't seem like anything will change with this. It will still increase your physical mitigation, incoming healing, block, and partial block chances. The capstone skill in Blue Line, Juggernaut, is getting a rework. Currently, it sets your block chance to 100% for 15 seconds, and you're immune to all combat states. Basically, currently it works as a really strong BPE tool, where you block every attack 100% as long as you're facing your enemy. And the suggested rework that I actually quite like, I like the look of this skill, Juggernaut will change. It will still have a 15-second duration and a 3-minute cooldown, but instead of 100% block chance, it would reduce all incoming damage by 20%. You still become immune to combat states, but the added effect, if an attack would defeat you, instead you are restored to 30% health and Juggernaut is removed. So I kind of like this. Juggernaut currently is like a full BPE cooldown. It's not always that useful in like a boss fight, but this actually makes the skill more useful in different situations. Reducing all incoming damage by 20% for 15 seconds is a nice cooldown. You still keep the immune to combat states, which is pretty nice. And if you quote-unquote die during this 15 seconds, Juggernaut goes away, but you're restored to 30% health, meaning it could save your life. So I think an interesting rework to Juggernaut. Moving over to the Redline Guardian changes. Redline the Keen Blade, which is the DPS spec for the Guardian. In the notes we find that Retaliation and Whirling Retaliation will become Onslaught and Whirling Onslaught. So speccing into Redline will change the Retaliation skills to Onslaught, and as before, you gain the skill Overwhelm. Outgoing healing is being reduced by 50% as a red guard. Parry, evade, and shield response events increase damage by 3%, stacking up to 5 times, expires if you're out of combat for 9 seconds. So parrying, evading, or using shield response events will put a stacking damage buff on you. The first trait you have in Redline is Thrill of Battle. This trait is getting reworked. Instead of healing you for critical hits with block and parry response skills, it will instead tier up a critical chance buff on you. So using damaging attacks in combat will increase your critical chance by 5% per tier to a maximum of 25%. Critical hits will remove that effect. So basically as a Guardian you'll be hitting a lot, you'll always be hitting the boss, and every time you use a damaging attack, your crit chance will increase. Let's say your crit chance is 30%, then you use an attack, it goes to 35, use another attack 40, 45, 50, and then 55% is the max. But of course if you get a critical hit during this time, it'll reset and remove the effect, so you can start tiering up again. So it's basically a trait that will increase the critical hits that a Guardian will deal during battle. So a pretty nice change for Red Guardian. We have a new trait, Martial Master, replacing Skillful Deflection, so your 5% parry chance is going away from Redline, and instead Guardian's Ward damage increased by 1% per tier. And also Guardian's Ward gains a mastery bonus while active, basically giving you a free mastery bonus and increasing Guardian's Ward damage by 5% if you put all points into this. Another nice change for DPS Guardian. Heavy weapons training is also getting changed. Instead of what it currently does, which is 10% skill damage or 2% per rank, instead it will add 1% damage to two-handed weapons per tier. So at max tier, 5% two-handed weapons damage, and also up to 5% melee skills damage. Basically putting all 5 points into heavy weapons training will give you 5% two-handed weapons damage and 5% melee skills damage. So another nice change for the Guardian. Looking at the next line, the thrust skill. The only comment about this is after a discussion with you all, thrust will remain unchanged. So thrust is staying as it is, as a bleed that you can apply to the target. Bleed them dry, which is set bonus number 4, is getting moved to set bonus number 2. So bleed them dry moves up 2 spots to the second set bonus. Invigorating parry seems to be changing to invigorating response, and instead of just restoring power on critical hits with parry response skills, it'll also work for block response skills. So both block response and parry response skills will restore power. Protection by the sword is also getting a rework, the third set bonus in Redline. Currently you can apply this to one person in your fellowship, and if that person's parries an attack, you will be able to react, and also you will increase the melee damage of that person if they're close to you. This skill is getting reworked. It'll still be a toggle skill, not interrupted by combat state effects, so you can't get stunned out of it. And this toggle skill will increase fellowship or raid members' melee damage by 5%, giving Red Guardian some nice group utility. I like this change. When a fellowship or raid member within 40 meters fully or partially blocks, parries, or evades an attack, you open a combat response event. So this last line here means that you're probably gonna have your combat response events quite often as Red Guardian. So I think this is another good change for Red Guardian. The second set bonus, reactive parry, got replaced by bleed them dry, And since Bleed Them Dry is taking the second spot in the trait lines, we have an open spot in number 4. Battle Fury will replace Reactive Parry and take this spot as the 4th set bonus. And this seems to be a new skill you can unlock. Battle Fury has a 3-minute cooldown, but when you use the Battle Fury skill, increases your damage by 20% for 20 seconds and unlocks combat response skills for 20 seconds. So Red Guardian gets a DPS cooldown. This is something that Guardians have longed for to have in Redline to actually bring them closer to other DPS. So a nice DPS cooldown unlocked for Red Guardian. Warrior's Fortitude is in the notes. The name is getting changed to Warrior's Advantage, but it will still give the same passive rewards: physical mastery increase, melee crit chance increase, parry, and partial parry rating increase. One of the capstone skills in Redline, Honorable Combat, is getting replaced. Currently, Honorable Combat is pretty useless for a DPS Guardian, so good news that this trait is getting replaced. And in its place, we're getting Rupture. Rupture replaces Honorable Combat. Hammer Down now removes all bleeds, increases damage for each bleed removed, and applies Ruptured Artery, which is a high damage 8-second bleed. Also increases incoming damage on target by 2% per removed bleed for 5 seconds per bleed removed. Counts as a debuff. So basically, Hammer Down will work as a cash out skill for Red Guardian, removing all your bleeds, dealing more damage for each bleed removed, and also applying another bleed, which is Ruptured Artery, that'll take for 8 seconds. And the more bleeds you remove from your target, you put an incoming damage debuff on the target, 2% per removed bleed for 5 seconds per bleed removed. So if you have, let's say you had 5 bleeds on a target, it would be 10% incoming damage on the target for 25 seconds. So another pretty strong, nice group utility trait for Red Guardian, and I have to say I actually like this. Looking good for Red Guardian. And the last set bonus in Redline, Prey on the Weak, which currently has critical hits against an opponent suffering from slashing wound, will inflict additional damage. This last set bonus is getting reworked. Prey on the Weak will increase damage from all skills if the target has any active bleed. And as a Red Guardian, you have bleeds pretty much all the time on the target, so the damage will pretty much always be increased. And another nice change for Red Guardian to increase their DPS. And when it comes to Yellow line, the Fighter of Shadow, this line goes poof, and instead it becomes a utility line. So a Guardian will either go tank line blue or DPS line red, and then take stuff from Yellow line to improve either red or blue line. Yellow line becomes a utility line. First change to yellow, Force Opening is now trainable, meaning you can trait Force Opening as Red Line and Blue Line Guardian moving forward. Bastion of Light becomes a trainable skill in yellow. It will place a 10-meter hotspot at the Guardian's feet that deals a small amount of light damage to all targets within. It will place a mark on all affected targets, making them more susceptible to debuffs applied by the Guardian. This will have a 15-second duration and a 20-second cooldown. So basically, popping the Bastion of Light skill, if this is the Guardian, then it will place a hotspot, 10-meter hotspot, so a 10-meter circle, I'm assuming, around you, and the enemies within this circle will be more susceptible to debuffs applied by the Guardian. Defensive Expertise, the block and parry that we saw being removed from blue and red, gets fused into one skill. It has 5 tiers, increases parry and block by 1% per tier. A nice change for the tanking Guardian, being able to get parry and block in the same trait. We have a trait Light Touched. It will have 5 tiers. Tier 1 gives you the ability to block with 2-handed weapons. So for those who want to tank with the 2-handed weapon, there you go, you can now block the 2-handed weapon. And the tiers 1 through 5 will increase your melee damage per tier and your incoming healing per tier, giving something good for DPS and for tank as well. Radiate has 3 tiers. It will increase the range of Bastion of Light by 5 meters for the first 2 tiers, and increase the range of Bastion of Light by 10 meters for the 3rd tier. AoE attacks have a 10% chance to spread, so potentially making your Bastion of Light circle 30 meters around you. And AoE attacks will have a 10% chance to spread to +1 marked targets per tier. I'm assuming that means you can have +3 targets, and AoE attacks will have a 10% chance to spread to that many targets. I'm not 100% sure how the debuff thing will work, but it seems like AoE attacks can spread the debuffs. Tenderize will have 5 tiers. Fully or partially parrying, blocking, or evading grants you a bonus critical rating. And this expires if you're out of combat for 9 seconds. I'm assuming every tier will just increase the strength of your critical rating buff. We have the trait Flash of Light. It will increase the damage dealt by Bastion of Light by 10%. It will increase the duration of Bastion of Light by 5 seconds, making the cooldown 20 seconds and the duration 20 seconds, I believe, which will give you a 100% uptime on the Bastion of Light. And also, while within Bastion of Light, melee skills deal a light damage. High Spirited, which is the incoming healing in yellow line, will, instead of being at the top, will be 1, 2, 3, it'll be at the 4th line. So the incoming healing will be a bit further down, so you'll have to put some more points into yellow to get your incoming healing. The trait Protected by the Light adds a 30% reduction to combat state effects to protection by the shield. It also adds a small reflective damage shield to Protected by the Sword. So basically, if you're Blue Guardian and you have a protection by the shield active, which already will reduce the incoming damage by 4%, it'll also reduce the combat state effects. So if you get stunned, it will reduce your stun by 30%. It'll reduce your fear by 30%, I believe. Any combat state effects will be reduced. Another really powerful buff to the Guardian's group utility. And for a Red Guardian, if you have Protected by the Sword active, it will add a small reflective damage shield to the targets, I'm assuming. Warrior's Guile seems to be staying the same, replacing Warrior's Fortitude, but still giving the same bonuses. And also Orion says, I'm leaning towards cutting a Mark of Permanence and Manifested Ire completely. So getting rid of the Mark targeting as a Guardian, I think that's a good idea. Those are the notes we have for yellow line. So, what are my final thoughts on the Guardian rework as it's put forward by Orion on the forum post? I think, especially for red line, it looks really promising. A lot of traits will change for the better. They're getting a DPS cooldown, and who knows, Red Guard might even become viable for group play. So I'm really looking forward to see what Red Guardians can do with this new trait. Blue line is not getting a lot of changes, which is good because blue line is pretty good right now. They're getting some small minor quality of life updates, which I do agree with. I like the change to Juggernaut, removing it from purely a BPE cooldown and making it instead more of a survivability tool. I like that change, making the capstone skill Juggernaut more usable overall instead of just a pure BPE cooldown. I like the change to adaptability, turning it into a mitigation buff instead of BPE. And I'm also interested to see how the protection by the shield will affect a raid. It looks really strong to me. So with these changes, I think a Blue Guardian will defend a spot in most groups, as it looks like the protection by the shield looks really strong for group play. And also from what we saw in yellow line, it looks like yellow will have some really nice utility. I like that they're merging the parry and block and putting into yellow. It seemed like we're getting some really nice utility for both blue and for red. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the actual trait line will look like and experimenting with building the best trait lines for a Guardian. Overall, I think the changes look really good for Guardian, and I'm really looking forward to this rework. A big thank you to Kay for supporting me through my Ko-fi website. Hey! Hey you! Yeah, you. What do you want? You enjoy my content and you want to support me? Fine, I'll show you how you can do it. I would really appreciate if you like the video and subscribe to my channel. You can also support me through my Ko-fi homepage. If you're playing or looking to play Lord of the Rings online, there is one place you need to be. The Ghyniverse is a Discord server created for the community of the players of Lord of the Rings Online. The server is getting close to 7,000 members, and in this server you'll find tons of helpful information. There's monthly giveaways, easy access to patch notes, you can keep up with my YouTube videos, my streams. If you're a streamer, you can ask for the streamer role and you can announce your streams in the other stream channel. There are discussion channels for pretty much everything, every class, monster players. But the best thing about this server is probably the Gearing Resources tab, where you can find anything from trait lines for every class, every build. There are stat goals, where you can find out what stats you should aim for on your characters. Really helpful information about drop rates from instances, as well as screenshot from all the new loot that appears in the game. If you enjoy LOTRO, you should definitely consider joining this server, and hopefully I'll see you in Middle-earth. If you were part of the Ghyniverse already, you might have noticed that another tab appeared at the top, the LFF server. This server is a brand new server that I created, the LFF Ghyniverse. In this server, you can select which servers you want to keep up with, and once you select your server, say you select Arkenstone, you will see the LFF, the kinship advertisement, looking for kinship and trade channels, and there's also voice channels if people want to use those. The LFF channel is basically a looking for fellowship channel where people can post if they need players for the runs, and this way people don't have to be logged into the game to see the chat, they can just instead get a notification on their Discord. There's also a kinship advertisement page where kins can post their kinship advertisement and have people join their kins. And you can also post in the looking for kinship chat if you're looking for a kinship, but make sure to take a look in the kinship advertisement first and look through all the kin to find a suitable kin for you. There's also a trade channel if people want to buy or sell stuff that you can use. Hopefully you'll consider joining this server to bring the community even more together, not just in the game, but also outside of the game.